Hi, this is Trent from Racket Stringing in Naples, Florida, and today we're going to be replacing the friction pads on the Babolat Star 5 stringing machine. The friction pads are the things right here underneath of the clamp base that enable the machine, the clamp base to lock after you've put tension on the string. Sometimes these friction pads can get worn down either because they've been over tightened and done damage to them, or perhaps they've just been used for a long time. And these machines last a long time, so this may be one of those pieces that you have to replace. In order to replace the friction pads, you just need a few things. First, you need a replacement friction pad, which you can get from Babolat. They've been very helpful in this process. You'll also need a 11/16 wrench, just a standard wrench. An offset wrench will work, but you need to have access through that hole in the back for one of the adjustments you'll make in the end. You need a 3mm Allen wrench and a 5mm Allen wrench. And with just these tools, we can take apart this machine and replace the friction pads. And that's what we're going to do.
Okay, I'm attempting to take off the turntable from the Babolat Star 5. And the first step is removing this, which is actually the brake. And there's just one screw here, and you just need an Allen wrench. You hold the turntable and spin it, and you'll want to have a hand there to catch it because it will fall. And then this is what's under there. Okay, we've removed the brake and the bolt that was holding on the turntable. Now we're going to attempt to just pull the whole turntable off. It has to be turned long ways like this before it will come off. It's somewhat heavy, so I'm going to just place it here on this container. All right, we have the turntable removed. Next thing is we need to take off these, the base clamp. And so you have to remove these little black things, and you just simply take a screwdriver and they just pop right out. It's pretty simple. And then once you take that off, there's both a little screw and then a nut, and the screw comes out with a small Allen wrench. Okay, when removing this nut, it's somewhat difficult to get off of there, so you have to take a wrench, and you actually tighten that bolt just a little bit, which takes the pressure off this screw, and then with the Allen wrench, it's much easier to remove the screw. Okay, I've just removed the nut, and under the nut there appears to be a washer. So now we're going to remove this piece. And then that just slides right off of there. And underneath is this white disc. And now we can see the brake pad. This one's actually pretty good. It's the other one that's the real problem. So here again is, we're gonna tighten this bolt just a bit. Okay, to lighten up the pressure on the set screw. So loosened up the set screw. I'm going to be careful not to drop it in the hole. So next we'll remove the nut. Get the washer. Okay, we just simply pull that off. And then this just slides off again. And here we've got the white disc underneath. Okay, and now we can see the real issue with that particular disc. All right, in order to get the plastic housing off of here, there are 3 screws that are the same Allen wrench size that remove those set screws. Will also remove these. Okay, already I can feel the plastic is starting to separate. So there we have it. Look at all the brake pad that was coming off. So this is just getting a better look at the bottom of the turntable before I take it apart. These are the actual brakes, and these arm positions are important to notice which piece is the upper arm, which is the lower, because we'll need to reassemble it in the same way after we replace the brakes or the friction discs. So to remove this is going to entail the same size Allen wrench that I initially removed the bottom nut that was holding the disc brake in. Okay, we moved the turntable here and just placed it upside down. These bolts were very, very tight. In fact, I broke this tool trying to get enough torque to unscrew them. So I ended up having to get a longer Allen wrench like this with enough leverage in order to loosen them, along with some WD-40. So we're going to just remove these bolts and the last one. So the next step is, now that we've got the bolts out, we just simply are going to pull this off. And I think what I'm going to do is clean this piece as well as clean all of this when I have the opportunity. Okay, now we can see the 2 brake pads, how they are aligned. Okay, underneath of here is a little, have to make sure that's aligned. So now you can see this piece was turned sideways, and so it wouldn't come up. You just have to turn that in order to be able to get it through. So this is the top piece. It's assembled like that. And then There's a washer. And then likewise we have to turn this to make sure it comes through. And the bottom piece. So what we're going to do next is, you can see how bad that pad is worn, that friction pad. So next we're going to just scrape all this stuff off and be ready to put our new friction pads on. I've got the worst of the two brakes here now. I'm going to take just a flathead screwdriver and attempt to scrape off what remains of the brake. I don't know if the flathead will work or not, but it seems to be working okay so far. I'm just going to try to get this as cleared off as possible so that I can put down some super glue and get the new friction pads on. Oh, that came off nicely. The white stuff, I don't know if that's the glue that the friction pad was stuck to. I'm not sure, but anyway, it doesn't come off very well. It comes off a little bit, but I'm not sure I really need to get it off. I think this is basically pretty flat, and that's the main thing I'm going for, so that when I put the new friction pads on, they'll lay nice and flat against the disc. All right, well, I have access to the bottom of the machine. I'm just going to take some alcohol and an old t-shirt and get the residue off the bottom of this thing, because I'm thinking the brakes are going to function a lot better whenever this turntable is cleaned off and smooth. All right, this thing is looking good. I'm feeling like it's gonna turn nice and smooth, and those clamps are gonna slide really nicely on the turntable once we get it back on. So I'm glad to have done this and gotten in here and really looked under the hood of the machine. I had no idea that there was all that residue on the bottom of this thing. I'm gonna just go over it one more time and really make it as smooth as can be. Okay, I've got the new friction pad to put on on the clamp. So I've got some Gorilla Glue, which is was recommended for this. So what I'm going to do is just apply the Gorilla Glue here to this pad. Then I'm going to put the new friction pad on there, and should be good to go. The glue's supposed to take 24 hours or so to really dry, so I can't see any difference either side of the new friction pad. So all right, so I'm going to apply the glue. I don't really know how to apply super glue correctly, but I assume that's basically fine, what I just did. And now I'm just going to press this on here and make sure it's flush all around. It's feeling like it's sticking pretty good already. All right, now we're going to begin to reassemble the machine. This is sat overnight and dried and feels good and secure. So the first thing is we're going to take the flat one and put it on there, and then we have to line up these bars to make sure it fits through the guide rail holes. We take the washer, goes right there between the two. Then this same thing we'll put so that it lines up through the slat. Good. Feels good. Next we take the metal plate and we just line up that over the center. It drops down on there. And then align the holes. We're going to put the 6 bolts back through that we took out. Okay, before we put the clamp handles back on, we're going to put the plastic casing back on. And so there are 1, 2, 3 holes that this is going to need to align with. This should do it. Oops. Nope. Okay, there's obviously a way that it fits, and so just have to make sure those holes line up, and this feels like the way. Alright, yeah. So I can see the holes through there, and then taking a 2.5 millimeter Allen wrench. Just get these started. Then I think I'm going to put this back on the machine itself to work on putting the clamps themselves back on. No sense doing it over here on the ground. Alright, so we've got that on there. Next thing we're going to do is move it over and put it on the machine. Okay, I've got the turntable. I took the opportunity to clean off this plastic part while I had the turntable off. Just going to line it up here. And it drops right in. And then we'll reattach the clamps and put the brake back on the bottom. Alright, we're now going to attempt to put the clamps back onto the machine. So this white part, you can see these 2 lines, they're going to go right on that bar. So you have to maybe twist this so that the bar is accessible there and not down in the crack. And just going to set this on there. You can feel it when it sort of drops into place. And then I've kept the various bolts and things inside of the cap so I didn't lose them. And the first thing we're going to put in place is the cap, the actual handle. And I'm just going to line that handle up with the bar. And it's nice and flat there. I'm going to take the washer, put it on that piece. Then we're going to take the nut, and I'm just going to put it on there by hand and hand tighten it. Because once we get it on there, there'll still be some adjustments that need to be made. Okay, so that's hand tight. Once you get the nut hand tightened, then you need to turn the nut counterclockwise 3/4 of a turn. So this nut actually has little markings on it, so that's how I'm going to determine how far 3/4 of a turn is. Because right now, the clamp won't move even though it's not locked. So I'm going to turn this nut 3/4 of a turn. Now I'm going to thread this screw in. And then once I got that in, I'm going to take this little wrench piece and hold the nut in place while I just tighten the screw enough to where it doesn't move, but I'm not putting a lot of pressure on it because I'm going to have to do more adjustment. So that's solid. Okay. So now you're going to try the knob, and if it doesn't move to a locked position, then we're going to have to loosen the nut. Okay. So that seemed to work pretty well in the first try. I want to actually turn this a little bit less whenever I'm locking it in the future. So I'm just going to loosen this screw. And I'm going to turn the nut just a little bit to the left and just loosen it slightly because it's pretty much where I want it, but just want it to lock a little bit. Actually, I meant to turn it the other way because I want it to lock a little bit quicker. Then I'm going to tighten that screw back down. Now let's just give it a test. Okay, well, I've gone too far, so now I got to loosen it up just a little bit. Loosen the screw. And I'm going to tighten the nut or loosen the nut just a little bit. And tighten it back up again. Give it a test. Didn't quite go far enough again, so one more try loosening the screw. And we'll loosen the nut just a bit. Tighten it back down. There we go. That clamp is good. So we're gonna put the cap, we'll just make sure it slides as it should. Beautiful. Slides great. Put the cap back on and we'll do the next one. Alright, now I'm going to put the clamp back, the base clamp back on the one where we actually replaced the brake, the friction disc. And I'm just going to take a little bit of the grease that's in here in the cap and put that on here to make sure that it moves nice and smooth whenever I put the cap back on. Alright. So we're going to do just like we did on the other one. That bar should align with the metal bar on the machine. There we go. It's clear when you get it into place. We're going to take the cap. Yeah, just gonna take a quick look because I spun it around. Yeah, now it's all right. So make sure the bar is in place. You can kind of see down in there too. There we go. All right, then I'm gonna put the cap back on. I line that little thing up with the pole. Put the washer on. Put the nut on. And again, we're just going to do this nut until it's hand tight. And then it's hand tight right there. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to loosen the nut by 3/4 of a turn. And then thread the central Allen screw. Then we'll hold that nut in place while we tighten down the Allen screw. Alright, we'll give it a test. Okay, so that's turning farther than I want it to, so we're going to loosen up the Allen screw and then tighten the nut. This handle should turn about 15 degrees or approximately 3/4 of an inch to be in the locked position. So we'll try that. Tighten down the screw again. That's better. Just want it a tad bit tighter. So one more adjustment here. Try that. I like that. It feels good and tight. Excellent. So that's now in place. Just make sure that Allen screw is in there solid. And it is. Put the cap back on. And clamps are in place. The next and last thing we need to do is just simply put the brake back onto the bottom. All right, the final piece is re-adding the brake to this little axle. There's a tiny hole right there that the Allen screw is going to go into. So we just get it up there into place. We're going to start by tightening it by hand once we get it into the hole. May just have to spin it a little bit till you find where that hole lines up. Then it goes in pretty easily. So then we'll tighten it up with the Allen wrench. Again, this is a 4.5 millimeter. Okay. And the brake is holding.
All right, we finished replacing the friction pad. The machine is now functioning as it should. Both clamp bases are locking as they're supposed to, and we hope that you are also able to get your clamp bases working as well. If you found this video helpful, please like it, subscribe to our channel, leave us a comment. Good luck on your next stringing project.